Okay, I'm trying not to lose track of where I am. Bolstering climate resilience and adaptation. President Biden's Investing in America agenda was building communities not only resilient to the impacts of the climate crisis, but also safer, more equitable, and economically stronger. The administration's National Climate Resilience Framework was advancing locally tailored, community-driven climate resilience strategies. Additionally, its nature-based solutions roadmap outlined strategic recommendations to put the United States on a path that will unlock the full potential of a nature-based solutions to address climate change, nature loss, and inequity. President Biden secured more than $50 billion for climate resilience and adaptation through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act. This historic level of funding was delivering real-world benefits while creating good-paying jobs that provided opportunities to community residents and offered a free and fair choice to join a union. The president's investments were upgrading aging roads and bridges, restoring critical waterways, forests, and urban green spaces, combating the growing threat of wildfires, reducing flood risks for infrastructure and homes, investing in cutting-edge forecasting tools, supporting resilient and climate-smart agriculture and forestry, restoring coastal wetlands to buffer communities from flooding, taking action to protect workers and communities from extreme heat, bolstering water infrastructure across the American West, and funding research to develop the latest energy storage technologies here in America. Accelerating a clean transportation future. President Biden took historic action to invest in clean transportation, expand public transit, and ensure that the future of the auto industry is made in America by American auto workers. The administration's National Blueprint for Transportation Decarbonization is a landmark strategy for cutting all greenhouse gas emissions from the U.S. transportation sector by 2050. The president's Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act invested tens of billions to decarbonize shipping, trucking, transit, rail, and aviation, all while improving air quality and making communities more walkable, bikeable, and connected. In addition, President Biden rallied automakers and auto workers around an historic goal of having electric vehicles account for at least half of new passenger vehicles sold by 2030. To support this goal, while driving down vehicle costs for American consumers, the president unleashed a manufacturing renaissance for EVs and batteries, issued the strongest ever vehicle emissions standards, secured tax credits that give consumers thousands of dollars off new or used clean vehicles at point of sale, and was investing billions into building out a convenient, reliable, and accessible national EV charging network. Since Biden took office, EV sales quadrupled, and the number of publicly available EV charging stations more than doubled, putting the country on track to deploy 500,000 chargers years ahead of the president's 2030 goal. The U.S. auto manufacturing sector added more than 100,000 jobs. Driven by Biden-Harris administration policies, the auto industry was experiencing a manufacturing renaissance with more than $180 billion of investments in EVs, batteries, and their supply chains, along with billions of dollars available to help automakers and auto workers retrofit existing facilities to make electric vehicles. Conserving our lands and waters. President Biden set the first ever national conservation goal through the America the Beautiful initiative to conserve at least 30% of U.S. lands and waters by 2030. Over 4 years, he launched one of the most rapid accelerations of conservation progress in history and conserved 674 million acres of lands and waters, more than any president in history, and created the largest corridor of protected lands in the lower 48 states, the Moab to Mojave Conservation Corridor. Historic actions include establishing, expanding, and restoring 15 national monuments, including the establishment of 10 new national monuments, the expansion of 2 existing national monuments, and the restoration of 3 more. President Biden safeguarded a total of nearly 9 million acres of federal lands and waters as national monuments through authorities under the Antiquities Act, protecting America's ocean and coasts from offshore oil and natural gas drilling, including more than 625 million acres across the entire U.S. Atlantic coast, the eastern Gulf of Mexico off Florida's coast, the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Washington, Oregon, and California, additional portions of the northern Bering Sea and Alaska, and the entire U.S. Arctic Ocean. Establishing the Chuckwalla National Monument and the Satilla Highlands National Monument to protect 848,000 acres of lands in California. The Chuckwalla National Monument in Southern California was President Biden's capstone action to create the new Moab to Mojave Conservation Corridor, the largest corridor of protected lands in the continental United States, covering nearly 18 million acres, stretching approximately 600 miles, protecting wildlife habitat and a wide range of natural and cultural resources along the Colorado River, across the Colorado Plateau, into the deserts of California, and through Ba Nuavio Leta Cucavenna, hard to pronounce, ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument in Arizona, and Avi Kwa Ame National Monument in Nevada, both established by President Biden in 2023. Hopefully he could pronounce it better than me. Designating Camp Hale, Continental Divide National Monument in Colorado, and the Kastner Range National Monument in Texas to expand contiguous wildlife habitat, increase outdoor access, and honor our nation's veterans. Establishing the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley National Monument in Illinois and Mississippi, the Springfield 1908 Race Riot National Monument in Illinois, the Francis Perkins National Monument in Maine, and the Carlisle Federal Indian Boarding School National Monument in Pennsylvania, to help ensure national park sites tell a more complete story of our nation. Expanding the San Gabriel Mountains and Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monuments in California. Restoring the Bears Ears National Monument, Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, and Northeast Canyons and Seamounts Marine National Monument. Securing historic protections in Alaska, including 13.3 million acres in the western Arctic and 28 million acres across the state, which are vital to the subsistence economy of Alaska Native people and rural communities and contain important fish and wildlife habitat. These protections followed President Biden's action to withdraw approximately 2.8 million acres of the Beaufort Sea, ensuring the entire U.S. Arctic Ocean is off limits to new oil and gas leasing, as well as restoring protections for the Tongass National Forest to safeguard nearly 10 million acres of roadless areas in southeastern Alaska. Further, the Biden-Harris administration rejected the proposed Ambler Road project, which would have traversed 211 miles of significant wildlife habitat and pristine waters. Establishing 3 national marine sanctuaries and a new national estuarine research reserve. This includes the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary off the central California coast, the Lake Ontario and Wisconsin Shipwreck Coast National Marine Sanctuaries, and the Connecticut National Estuarine Research Reserve. Launching the America the Beautiful Freshwater Challenge, which established national goals to protect, restore, and reconnect 8 million acres of wetlands and 100,000 miles of rivers and streams by 2030. Protecting at-risk areas from damage from oil and gas drilling and hard rock mining, including Bristol Bay in Alaska, the Boundary Waters in Minnesota, Chaco Canyon and Placitas area in New Mexico, the Pactola Reservoir in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and the Thompson Divide in Colorado. Creating 6 new national wildlife refuges, including the Everglades to Gulf Conservation Area in southwest Florida, the Wyoming Toad Conservation Area in Wyoming, the Paint Rock River National Wildlife Refuge in Tennessee, the Lost Trail Conservation Area in Montana, and the Southern Maryland Woodlands National Wildlife Refuge in Maryland. Advancing tribal co-stewardship of federal lands through a joint secretarial order among the Departments of the Interior, Agriculture, and Commerce, resulting in an historic 400 co-stewardship and co-management agreements between tribal nations and federal land management agencies. Restoring wild salmon, steelhead, and other native fish in the Columbia River Basin in partnership with Pacific Northwest tribes and states. Mobilizing the next generation of clean energy, conservation, and resilience workers. Through President Biden's landmark American Climate Corps initiative, the administration mobilized a new diverse generation of Americans. The American Climate Corps puts Americans to work, conserving and restoring our lands and waters, bolstering community resilience, deploying clean energy, implementing energy-efficient technologies, and advancing environmental justice, all while creating pathways to higher quality, good-paying jobs. More than 20,000 young Americans were put to work through the American Climate Corps. Cutting energy costs and pollution at homes, schools, and in communities. The Biden-Harris administration transformed how we buy, build, and manage electricity, vehicles, buildings, infrastructure projects, and other operations to be clean and sustainable while creating good, clean energy jobs, supporting American manufacturing, and saving taxpayers money by cutting energy and operating costs. President Biden created new programs to save American families on their energy bills by retrofitting homes through EPA's Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, DOE's Home Energy Rebates, HUD's Green and Resilient Retrofit Program, and Treasury's Home Energy Tax Credits. He also bolstered funding for proven programs that lower costs for American families, such as the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program and the Weatherization Assistance Program. The Biden-Harris administration strengthened energy efficiency standards to save households and businesses money, with standards updated by the Department of Energy for dozens of appliances and equipment types, expected to provide nearly $1 trillion in consumer savings over 30 years, saving the average family at least $100 a year through lower utility bills, while also reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 2 billion metric tons or more, equivalent to the emissions of more than 15 million gas-powered cars over 30 years. The president brought solar and wind to low-income and disadvantaged communities throughout the country, including more than 400 schools that used direct pay in 2023 to install solar, geothermal, EV infrastructure, and other improvements to cut costs and lower emissions. President Biden is also helping families cut energy costs in new homes through the Home Energy Tax Credit. President Biden expanded domestic heat pump manufacturing, which cut the cost of heat pumps for Americans. To ensure that new homes are efficient and resilient, President Biden's national initiative to advance building codes accelerated adoption of modern building codes that protect people from extreme weather events and save communities an estimated $1.6 billion a year in avoided damages. Additionally, Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine in 2022 upended global energy markets, causing energy prices to skyrocket in the United States. In response, President Biden took key steps to lower energy costs for families. He ordered the largest release of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to ensure that domestic energy markets were adequately supplied, which lowered everyday costs for American households. These actions helped lower prices at the pump by up to 40 cents per gallon. Purchased nearly 200 million barrels of oil for the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The Biden-Harris administration's successful replenishment strategy netted $3.5 billion profit for taxpayers. Next, we will have revitalizing American manufacturing for the clean economy. Next video.